The galaxy was full of light, but for humanity, it became dark. Long ago, humans reached the stars with hope in their hearts. They were not conquerors. They did not arrive with massive fleets or deadly weapons. They came with open hands, offering trade, ideas, and peace. Humanity believed the galaxy was big enough for everyone. At first, the great alien powers welcomed them. The Galactic Coalition spoke with calm voices and kind words. They promised protection, fairness, and unity. They said humanity would be safer under their rule. Many humans believed them. That belief became their greatest mistake. Slowly, the rules changed. Human trade ships were inspected more often. Human technology was labeled unstable. Human colonies were placed under temporary supervision. Every decision was explained as being for the good of the galaxy. By the time humans realized the truth, it was already too late. The Coalition did not fear humanity's strength. They feared humanity's potential. Humans learned fast. They adapted faster. And the older species saw something dangerous in that. Something that could not be controlled forever. So the galaxy decided to act. The first human colony fell without warning. Its orbital defenses were shut down by Coalition codes. Its ships were seized in the name of security. Soldiers arrived, not as enemies, but as peacekeepers. When the humans resisted, the answer was swift and brutal. Cities burned under alien skies. News spread across human space. But the Coalition controlled the channels. By the time Earth received the full message, dozens of colonies were already gone. Then came the decree. Humanity was declared a destabilizing species. The words sounded clean and legal, but their meaning was simple. Humans were no longer allowed to stand on their own. Human fleets were dismantled. Their weapons were taken. Their research labs were erased. Entire databases of human knowledge were wiped clean in a single cycle. On Earth, people watched the sky as Coalition warships blocked the sun. They did not fire at first. They waited. Waiting was part of the lesson. When Earth's leaders refused to surrender full control, the bombardment began. Not total destruction. Just enough. Enough to break pride. Enough to break hope. Humanity screamed into the void for help. No one answered. Allies turned silent. Neutral worlds looked away. The galaxy chose comfort over justice. In less than 10 standard years, humanity lost everything. Their worlds were seized or abandoned. Survivors were relocated to harsh planets and forgotten moons. Families were separated. Cultures were shattered. The galaxy moved on. To them, humans were a problem that had been solved. But deep in the shadows, something else was happening. On a dead mining moon far from any trade route, a group of human survivors gathered inside a broken shelter. The air was thin. The machines barely worked. Children slept beside cold walls. An old engineer looked at the wreckage around him and spoke quietly. "They think this is the end." No one answered him, not because they disagreed, but because they were too tired to believe anything else. Years passed. Human populations shrank. Hunger, disease, and despair claimed millions. Many believed humanity would fade into history, remembered only as a warning. But humans had always been stubborn. In hidden places, they began to save what little they had left. A book here, a data chip there, a memory passed from parent to child. A former scientist taught children math by drawing in the dirt. A soldier trained young men and women using sticks instead of weapons. An old pilot described the stars from memory, refusing to let them be forgotten. They had no factories, so they learned to reuse everything. They had no fleets, so they studied wrecks and broken ships. They had no future promised to them, so they built one anyway. The galaxy never noticed. Coalition leaders spoke proudly of peace and stability. They believed removing humanity had made the stars safer. Trade flourished. Borders expanded. Old enemies returned to fighting each other. No one watched the dark edges of space. That was where humans live now, in asteroids hollowed by hand, in underground cities carved from stone, in drifting stations powered by salvage reactors. They spoke less. They listened more. They learned how the galaxy worked, how power flowed, how systems depended on each other. They learned where the coalition was strong and where it was blind. A human child once asked her teacher a simple question: why did they take everything from us? The teacher thought for a long time before answering. Because they were afraid of what we could become. That answer stayed with her. Across human space, a quiet change began. Humans stopped dreaming of returning to what they had lost. Instead, they imagined something new, something better, something no one could ever take away again. They did not speak of revenge. They spoke of preparation. They did not shout into the stars. They waited. And as the galaxy slept, believing the human story was over, humanity took its first real step forward, not with ships or weapons, but with an idea. If the galaxy could strip them of everything, then humanity would rebuild everything. But this time it would be on their terms, and the stars would never forget it. Humanity did not disappear. It fractured. Across the dark edges of the galaxy, human survivors lived in places no one wanted. Frozen rocks, burning deserts, empty stations drifting without names. The coalition called these locations resettlement zones. Humans called them graves. Life there was cruel and simple. Every breath was earned. Every meal was fought for. Children learned hunger before they learned words. Many died, but those who lived became different. On the planet Keros 9, the sun burned the land until metal warped and stone cracked. Water was rare. Machines failed often. The coalition had placed thousands of humans there, expecting the planet to finish what they started. It did not. A former human medic named Elia learned how to treat wounds using plant fibers and heat instead of lost medical tools. She taught others. Soon, no one died alone. On an ice moon called Vesk, a group of engineers lived inside a crashed cargo ship. The reactor was broken beyond repair, or so the coalition believed. But humans studied it for years, taking it apart piece by piece, learning how energy really flowed. They did not fix it. They improved it. Across human settlements, this pattern repeated. They had no factories, so they learned to make tools by hand. They had no computers, so they trained their minds to remember complex systems. They had no protection, so they learned patience. The galaxy believed humans were weak because they lacked power. Humans discovered power was not the same as strength. Coalition patrols still passed near human zones sometimes. Their ships never stopped. Their scanners barely registered human life signs. Humans learned to stay invisible. Fires were hidden underground. Signals were kept low. Even voices were quiet. Survival meant silence. Children grew up knowing one rule above all others: do not be seen. But while humans stayed hidden, they never stopped watching. They studied alien ships. They learned how coalition engines jumped through space. They mapped trade routes. They listened to broken broadcasts and stored every piece of information. Humans began to understand something important. The galaxy was large, but it was not strong everywhere. It relied on systems, on shared energy lines, on trade routes that could not be easily replaced. And most of all, it relied on belief. The belief that the coalition was eternal. That belief was wrong. In the depths of an asteroid belt, a secret human meeting took place. No banners, no leaders, just survivors, engineers, farmers, soldiers, teachers. They spoke of the future, not of revenge, of independence. They agreed on one thing: humanity could never gather in one place again. One capital meant one target. One throne meant one weakness. So they chose a new path. Humanity would become scattered, but connected. Each settlement would be small, self-sufficient, hidden, but all would share knowledge, ideas, designs. No single leader, no single failure. They called it the thread. Information passed from world to world through methods the coalition never imagined. Physical couriers, encoded star patterns, messages hidden inside harmless signals. Slowly, the thread grew. Human settlements began to change. Homes became stronger. Machines became smarter. Power systems became efficient beyond anything the coalition used. Humans did not build large weapons. They built tools that could do many things. a mining laser that could also cut ships, a shield generator that could bend gravity, a power core that could repair itself. Everything had multiple uses, because humans knew one truth now. When you have nothing, waste is death. Generations passed. Human children no longer cried when they looked at the stars. They studied them. They memorized them. They planned for them. Stories were told, not of loss, but of learning. We survived because we adapted. That became the human lesson. Meanwhile, the galaxy changed in its own way. The coalition grew comfortable, rich, slow. Its leaders argued over borders and taxes. Fleets were large but outdated. Technology advanced, but without purpose. They had forgotten struggle. Humans had not. In secret shipyards carved inside dead planets, humans built their first true vessels since the fall. They were small, silent, strange in design. Coalition sensors often missed them completely. These ships were not made to fight. They were made to endure. When one ship failed, its data was shared instantly. Mistakes became lessons. Lessons became upgrades. Human technology began to move faster than the galaxy expected, because it was built by those who remembered loss. One night, on a quiet human world, a child looked up and asked her grandfather a question. "Will they ever come back for us?" The old man smiled sadly. "They will," he said, "but not the way they expect." The child frowned. "Why?" "Because they think we survived by luck," he replied. "They don't know we survived by change." And far beyond human space, the galaxy continued to sleep, unaware that humanity was no longer just surviving. They were preparing to step back into the stars, not as victims, not as beggars, but as something new, something shaped by nothing. And soon, the galaxy would feel the first quiet tremor of what humanity had become. Humanity did not return to the galaxy with fire. They returned with patience. For many years, human settlements stayed hidden. They did not expand quickly. They did not rush into open space. Every move was slow and careful, like a hunter learning the land. The thread grew stronger. Across dozens of forgotten systems, human worlds shared knowledge without ever meeting in one place. A discovery made on one planet was improved on another. A mistake made in one system was never repeated again. Humans no longer worked alone. They worked together without standing together. This was their greatest strength. On the world called Emberfall, once a dead rock near a dying star, humans built a city beneath the surface. Heat from the star powered their homes. Old mining tunnels became living spaces. Children grew up knowing the planet above them was deadly, but the world below was safe. On another world, deep inside a gas cloud that blocked most sensors, humans created floating stations that moved slowly with the storms. Coalition ships avoided the region, believing nothing could survive there. Humans thrived. They studied the galaxy from afar. They learned how alien empires rose and fell. They saw patterns others ignored. Species that ruled by fear collapsed. Species that ruled by greed consumed themselves. Humanity wrote it all down, not as history, as warnings. Human technology changed in ways the coalition would never understand. They stopped building larger machines. They built smarter ones. Human ships did not rely on heavy armor. They used layered fields that bent energy instead of blocking it. Human engines did not burn fuel loudly. They folded space quietly, leaving almost no trace. Human cities did not glow. They absorbed light. Everything humans built had one goal: survive the worst, because they remembered the worst. As the thread connected more worlds, humans faced a choice: remain hidden forever, or prepare for contact. They chose preparation, not for war, for control. They knew they could never defeat the galaxy by force. The coalition was too large, too many ships, too many worlds. So humans asked a different question. What does the galaxy need to function? The answer was simple: energy, trade, trust. Humans focused on those. They placed themselves near old trade routes, but never on them. They studied how resources moved between worlds. They learned which systems could not survive without constant supply. And quietly, Humans began to improve those systems. They repaired broken stations no one else cared about. They stabilized unstable stars using technology built from scraps and experience. They restored failing jump gates. They never took credit. The galaxy thought its own systems were simply working better. Meanwhile, human influence spread like roots beneath the surface. Coalition merchants found routes safer. Power failures became rare. Piracy declined in certain regions without explanation. Humans were already shaping the galaxy. The coalition never noticed. Their leaders were too busy arguing, too busy competing for status, too busy believing they had already won history. Humanity was writing a new chapter, one without names, one without flags, on a human world hidden inside a shattered planet. A council met for the first time in generations. They were not rulers. They were listeners. Each represented knowledge, not power. They spoke about the future. Some wanted to remain unseen forever. Others believed humanity must one day stand openly again. The decision was not made quickly. Humans had learned patience. But one thing was clear. When humanity returned, it could not be as it was before. No single capital. No single fleet. No single voice. If one world fell, others would continue. If one system burned, the thread would remain. Human children were taught this from birth. You are human first. Everything else is secondary. Human identity became stronger than planets or borders. As decades passed, human technology reached a point even they did not fully understand. Systems designed to adapt began improving themselves. Not dangerously. Carefully. Humans watched closely. They remembered what unchecked power had done to others. Then, one quiet cycle, something changed. A coalition patrol vanished near an empty system. No explosion. No signal. Just silence. The event was logged as a malfunction. Then another ship failed near a different region. Its crew survived, but their systems were dead. They spoke of strange readings, of space behaving incorrectly. The coalition dismissed it, but humans noticed. The galaxy was beginning to feel their presence, not as an enemy, as a question. In hidden observatories, human analysts watched coalition responses. They measured fear, confusion, denial. All were expected. Humanity was not ready to reveal itself yet, but the rebuilding was complete. They no longer lived in fear of extinction. They had infrastructure, knowledge, connection. They had learned how to survive without being seen. And now, they were learning how to exist without asking permission. Soon, the galaxy would be forced to notice, not because humans demanded attention, but because the galaxy itself would begin to depend on them. And when that moment came, humanity would not raise weapons. They would raise terms, because they had rebuilt the galaxy quietly, and it already belonged to them. The first signs were small, so small that most ignored them. A trade convoy arrived late at its destination. No damage, no attack, just delay. The merchants complained, the system logged it, and the galaxy moved on. Then a power station failed in a border system. Engineers repaired it, but no one could explain why it failed in the first place. The equipment was new, perfectly maintained. Soon after, a coalition patrol ship lost all navigation for several minutes while passing through empty space. When control returned, the crew claimed the stars had shifted. They were laughed at. The galaxy believed in its own order, in its own control. Strange events were labeled as errors, accidents, or imagination. Humans labeled them tests. Across hidden human worlds, observers watched carefully. Every reaction was measured. Every report was studied. Humans were no longer guessing how the galaxy would respond. They were confirming it. As the strange events continued, something worse followed. Silence. Entire communication relays went dark for short periods, then returned without damage. No evidence of sabotage. No sign of enemies. Just absence. Coalition analysts grew nervous. They ran simulations. They blamed pirates. They blamed rival species. They blamed outdated systems. They never blamed humans, because humans were gone, or so they believed. In a distant system, A coalition fleet assembled to investigate repeated failures near an old trade route. Dozens of ships entered the region together, confident in their strength. Only half came out. No wreckage was found. No distress calls were recorded. The surviving ships reported that space itself seemed wrong. Engines failed in sequence. Weapons refused to arm. Sensors fed false information. The fleet retreated. For the first time in centuries, a coalition command issued a warning, not to civilians, to its own leaders. Panic did not spread openly. The coalition hid fear behind meetings and closed doors. But fear was there, growing, pressing. They searched their records. They searched old enemies. They searched history. And then someone spoke the word no one wanted to hear. Humans. The idea was dismissed at first. Humanity had been stripped of everything. Their worlds destroyed. Their technology erased. They were scattered survivors, barely alive. That was a story everyone knew, but some records did not fit. Old reports spoke of human adaptability, of unusual learning speed, of survivors in places no one could live. Those reports had been ignored before. Now they felt heavy. Coalition leaders ordered deeper scans of forgotten systems. Long-range probes were sent into dark regions. Many never returned. Those that did brought strange data. Artificial structures hidden inside asteroids. Energy signatures disguised as natural radiation. Star systems stabilized by unknown methods. Someone had been busy. The galaxy finally understood something was wrong. But understanding came too late. In several major systems, power grids failed at the same time. Backup systems activated, but ran slower. Trade stations delayed shipments. Food worlds missed deliveries. Nothing collapsed. Yet, but pressure built. Coalition citizens grew restless. Governments blamed each other. Old tensions returned. Fleets were moved. Borders tightened. All the while, the problems continued. Always just short disaster. Humans were careful. They did not want chaos. They wanted leverage. On a quiet human world, a gathering took place, not of rulers, but of planners. They spoke calmly, without anger. The galaxy is reacting exactly as expected, one said. They still believe this is temporary, another replied. They believe they can fix it, a third added. A pause followed. Then it is time to speak, someone said. The decision passed through the thread. Humanity would send a message, not a threat, a truth. Across every major coalition channel, a signal appeared. It did not override systems. It did not force entry. It waited to be accepted. Curiosity did the rest. The message was simple. No symbols of power. No images of fleets. Just words. You removed us because you feared what we could become. You were correct. We learned. We adapted. We are still here. The galaxy froze. Coalition leaders demanded immediate action. Fleets were mobilized. Emergency powers were invoked. But they faced a problem they had never encountered before. They did not know where humanity was. There was no capital to attack, no fleet to destroy, no border to cross. Humanity was everywhere and nowhere. As coalition forces rushed to defend key systems, more failures appeared. Not attacks, adjustments. Energy rerouted, communications delayed, weapon systems slowed by fractions of a second, small changes, deadly ones. A coalition admiral slammed his fist on a command table. They're not fighting us, he said. They're controlling us. And he was right. Humanity had not returned as conquerors. They had returned as architects. The galaxy ran on systems humans now understood better than anyone else. And every attempt to strike blindly only made dependence clearer. The truth settled in slowly and painfully. The galaxy had not destroyed humanity. It had trained them. Stripped of everything, humans had learned what truly mattered. Not power, not territory, but structure. And now, the structure of the galaxy itself was in human hands. The coalition had awakened something it could no longer command. And the stars waited in silence. Because the next step would not be quiet. The galaxy expected war. That was how it had always worked. When power shifted, fleets burned stars and worlds fell silent. The coalition prepared for destruction because destruction was the only language it knew. Humanity did not speak that language anymore. When coalition fleets finally moved toward suspected human regions, they found nothing to fight. No defense lines, no weapon platforms, no cities shining in space. Only systems that no longer obeyed them. Jump gates refused priority commands. Energy stations rerouted power automatically. Trade networks delayed military shipments while civilian goods moved freely. Coalition admirals shouted orders. The systems did not listen. In many worlds, leaders woke to panic. Food shipments arrived late. Hospitals lost power for minutes at a time. Nothing deadly, but enough to cause fear. Citizens demanded answers. Governments had none. Then came the second message. It appeared quietly, delivered through restored communication relays that should not have worked. It reached rulers, merchants, scientists, and civilians alike. We are not your enemy. We are the consequence of your choices. The message explained nothing more, but humans followed it with action. On border worlds once ignored by the coalition, infrastructure suddenly improved. Old stations came back online. Power stabilized. Pirates vanished as navigation systems refused to guide them. These worlds prospered, and they noticed something important. They were not ruled. They were supported. Representatives from these systems tried to contact the coalition. They were ignored. Coalition leaders were too busy protecting their own power. So the worlds reached elsewhere. They reached toward the unknown force fixing what the coalition had broken. Humanity answered, not with demands, with rules. Simple ones. Energy must be shared fairly. Trade must remain open. No species may starve another into obedience. If a world agreed, human systems helped stabilize its networks. If it refused, nothing happened. No punishment. No attack. The galaxy began to change its shape. Coalition worlds struggled. Independent systems flourished. Not because they were stronger, but because they were connected. Coalition leaders tried to respond with force. A strike was ordered against a suspected human installation hidden inside a nebula. The fleet entered confidently. Their weapons never fired. Navigation collapsed. Ships drifted. Crews lost coordination. Panic spread faster than commands. Then human voices filled their channels. Calm, clear, controlled. Do not resist. You are safe. This system will not allow violence. The fleet was released hours later, unharmed but humiliated. The message was clear. Humanity could stop war without firing a shot. Across the galaxy, fear changed into something worse. Realization. Humanity had not rebuilt itself to fight the galaxy. They had rebuilt the galaxy to function without the coalition. The coalition tried to cut off systems under human influence. Trade sanctions were announced. Borders closed. It backfired. Coalition world depended too much on the very networks humans now controlled. Energy shortages spread. Civil unrest followed. Old rivalries returned with new anger. Coalition citizens asked a dangerous question. If the humans can fix this, why won't our leaders let them? Some coalition worlds broke away peacefully. Others collapsed into chaos. Humanity did not interfere unless asked. They had learned long ago that forced order never lasted. On a human world deep within the thread, observers watched the galaxy reshape itself. One spoke quietly. We didn't conquer them. Another replied, they chose us. That was the difference. Humanity never claimed ownership of worlds. They offered access to energy systems that adapted, to trade networks that repaired themselves, to laws designed to limit power, not protect it. Human laws were strange to the galaxy. Leaders were accountable. Decisions were shared. No species held permanent control. Those who tried to abuse the system found themselves isolated, not attacked, simply unsupported. And without support, power faded. Former coalition elites tried to negotiate. They demanded status. Humanity refused. They offered participation instead. Many refused at first. Pride died slowly. But hunger, isolation, and failure taught faster lessons in words. One by one, systems joined. Not because they were forced, but because the human design worked. The galaxy began to stabilize. Trade returned, stronger than before. Conflict slowed. Old enemies found themselves cooperating simply to function. Humanity watched carefully. They adjusted quietly. They remembered the past. They refused to repeat it. For the first time in known history, the galaxy did not revolve around fear. It revolved around balance. And that balance carried a human shape, not in appearance, but in philosophy. Adapt or fall behind. Share or collapse. Build systems that protect the weak or lose everything. The coalition officially dissolved not with war, but with silence. Its chambers emptied. Its symbols lost meaning. No one mourned it. In its place stood something new. Not a human empire. A human-designed galaxy. And as the stars settled into a new order, one truth became clear to every species watching change unfold. Humanity had been stripped of everything. So they rebuilt everything. Not to rule, but to ensure no one could ever be stripped again. The galaxy became quiet again, not the fearful silence of before, when ships vanished and systems failed without warning. This silence was different. It was steady, balanced, alive. For the first time in centuries, no single power ruled the stars, and humanity did not stand at the center. They stood everywhere. Human systems ran beneath the surface of the galaxy, like unseen roots. Energy flowed smoothly. Trade moved freely. Conflicts slowed before they could grow. When problems appeared, solutions followed quietly. Most species barely noticed how much depended on human design. That was intentional. Humanity had learned long ago that loud power attracted enemies. Quiet stability attracted cooperation. On a peaceful world once ruled by the coalition, a teacher spoke to a class of mixed-species children. Humans, avians, scale beings, and others sat together. "Why do we have these laws?" a child asked. The teacher smiled. "Because once, the galaxy believed taking everything from one species would make it safer." "And did it?" another asked. "No," the teacher replied softly. "It made that species stronger." Stories of humanity spread across the stars. Not heroic tales of conquest, but warnings wrapped in history. They told of a species stripped of worlds, technology, and voice. A species pushed into darkness and forgotten. A species that learned how systems worked when it had nothing else to study. Other species listened. Some felt fear. Others felt respect. Humanity did not hide what they had become, but they never celebrated it either. No monuments. No grand announcements. No ruling councils with human faces alone. Instead, there were safeguards. Human systems were designed to prevent abuse, even by humans themselves. No world could gain unlimited control. No leader could act without consequence. Power was temporary. Responsibility was permanent. Many humans disliked these limits. Humanity kept them anyway, because they remembered. They remembered being powerless. They remembered watching the sky burn. They remembered begging for help and hearing nothing but silence. Those memories shaped everything. On Earth, slowly restored and green again, an old woman stood at a memorial carved into stone. It did not list victories. It listed losses. She had been a child when the coalition came. She had watched her city fall. She had survived because others did not. A young human stood beside her. "Was it worth it?" he asked. "Everything we became?" She thought for a long time. "Yes," she said, "because we didn't become them." That was humanity's greatest victory. They did not replace one tyrant with another. They replaced fear with structure. Across the galaxy, small conflicts still happened. Disagreements still formed. Species still argued. But now, no one could erase another species without facing the collapse of systems they depended on. The galaxy had learned the cost of cruelty. Humanity had made sure of it. In distant systems, alien historians recorded a final note about humans. They wrote, "Humans are not the strongest species. They are not the oldest. They are not the most powerful. But they are the most dangerous to underestimate. Because humans did not need dominance to win. They needed time. And when given nothing but time, they rebuilt everything." Human children grew up hearing the old stories, not as tales of hatred, but as lessons. Never take everything from someone, parents said. You might teach them how to survive without you. As centuries passed, humanity slowly stepped back even further. They allowed other species to take leadership roles. They let the galaxy grow in new ways. Human systems remained, always watching, always ready, because humanity knew something no other species truly understood. Peace is not permanent. It must be designed, maintained, protected, and far beyond the bright core worlds, on the edge of known space, a small human station drifted quietly. Inside, a single message was carved into its walls, not for pride, but for memory. It read, "We were left with nothing, so we learned what mattered, and we built everything so no one else would have to lose it all." The stars moved on, the galaxy endured, and humanity, once broken, once forgotten, became a foundation beneath it all. Not rulers, not gods, but architects.